Hi, this is Jay Horwitz with the latest edition of Amazing Mets Alumni Podcast. We're here today to celebrate the life of the bad dude, John Stearns. November 7th, they're going to have a celebration of life at the University of Colorado at Folsom Field. And two people who are close to John, Bob Masten, who played with John for 3 years in Colorado, and Bobby Valentine, who was with John in a lot of his Mets career. One question out to both of you guys. Was there ever a better nickname than the bad dude for John?
It's real interesting, Jay. When John was a freshman, they were interviewing, Sports Illustrated was interviewing a guy named Don Popplewell. He was going to be an All-American center. I think he ended up playing for the Rams for a few years. But John had a few beers and heard about the interview, and he walked up to the Sports Illustrated guy, and he says, "My name's John Stearns, and you put in there, I'm gonna be the baddest dude that ever played safety at CU." So that's
how it started.
That's how it started.
But Bobby, what's your recollection, Bobby V?
Oh, Jay and Bob. Bob, you saw all those hits when he was in a football uniform. We were in the playoffs in '99, and we had a rain delay. And I had reached out to the PR department over in Colorado State, and I asked them to put together the best hits of John Stearns. And during the rain delay, I called everyone together. He didn't know what was happening. None of the players knew what was happening. And we put on the TV in the clubhouse all these hits of the dude. And he got up in front of the TV when it was all over. He said, "That's right. That's why they call me the bad dude."
Yeah.
And absolutely, he was bad. Jay, as you remember, and Bob, he took the greatest hit in the history of baseball when Joel Youngblood caught a short fly ball and threw him a strike from right field at Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh. And Dave Parker, the biggest, fastest, and baddest dude on the Pittsburgh Pirates, tagged up at third and ran head on into John at home plate. John took that hit full blast, got knocked back 15 feet, held up the ball when it was all over, and Dave Parker wound up with a broken face. So, yeah, he was a bad dude.
He after that comment, he was a tough guy, but he didn't have any choice but to be a bad dude because everybody on the team was taking shots at him and kidding him about it. But he ended up being a heck of a player, and he loved it. He loved the contact. And our senior year down at LSU, I mean, he not only knocked these guys upside down, but he had 2 or 3 interceptions in one game. And he was a leader on defense, and just it was really fun to at the end of that game, we ended up playing in high school together, and we said, can you believe that we're here beating LSU, because we were never even picked to be in the runnings that year of the top 25 teams in the country, and we ended up number 3. So that was a lot of fun.
Hey, Bob, how long did it take him to learn to strut like that? He had the baddest strut that anybody ever had.
He was incredible. I think he practiced in front of the mirror.
He was pimping before people were pimping.
Yeah.
No question about it. No question about it. He was a piece of work.
One thing I want to bring up, Gar, we had a rough time yesterday, Bob Masten, I'm sure you're aware of, and we had a lot of great things happen. Bobby V was there. For me, probably the number one highlight was to see the reception that John got from the fans. He literally willed himself to come there. He wanted to see his teammates and his friend. And he got one point during the ceremony, he got to the batting cage, took a couple of swings. He got a great hand from the crowd. And that, for me, that made the whole game worthwhile. What happened? Bobby, we were there first. What was your recollection?
Well, first off, Jay, the hard work you put into it is amazing. Right. Thank you for doing it. And thanks, Steve Cohen, and Alex Cohen for initiating something like that at the right time for the right reason. Not only put all the alumni together, but to have that as some of the last days that the dude was on earth. When he went into the batting cage, when he was sitting watching the game, when I walked around with him, and the bat had more substance to it than his shoulder at the time. It is amazing how he had passed away already, I believe, and yet he was there walking through that memory of baseball players, and it was a special day for him, but it was a special day for me to be with him. And thank you for doing that, Jay.
That was great. Bob, man, did he get a chance to talk about the game when he got back home?
He talked about a little bit, but toward the end there, Jay, he was starting the dementia was really starting to kick in, and he was pretty repetitive of questions and whatnot. So it was little difficult to get, but he did mention it. He really enjoyed that.
I think the whole world know what kind of you alluded to before, what kind of a baseball player he was, but 16 career interceptions, led you guys to 4 bowl games. He was drafted by the Bills. I know as a senior year, he led the country in hitting and home runs in baseball, but could he have made it in the NFL?
Absolutely. I mean, he was just a two-fisted guy that he was such a great athlete. He could have easily have played in the pros for several years.
Bobby, why did you pick John as one of your coaches? You were his teammate, right? In the 70s for a little bit, and you coached him, and then he was on your staff. What made you select him as a coach?
John was made of the right stuff. He not only knew the difference between right and wrong, but he knew how to instruct and inform and inspire players and people who were around him. His presence, his professionalism in how he went about his business was a benefit to me as a manager and to the team as a whole.
Talk about his relationship with Mike. I remember one time Mike had a big home run. What was his quote? The monster's out of the cage. I probably screwed it up. It was something along those lines, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, John was in awe of Mike Piazza's ability to hit it over the fence, because of all the things that John did at the big leagues, hitting it over the fence wasn't one of them. He was a good hitter, a great base runner, and a really tough defensive catcher. But that launch angle wasn't part of his program at the time. But when Mike would hit it 500 feet, he would call him the monster of Shea. And when he hit that one home run, he said, the monster's been released, or whatever it was. And we started chanting. It was spectacular.
Bobby, what kind of would you compare him to maybe Realmuto today as a fast guy, steals bases, the catcher?
Great comparison. Similar in size, similar in tenacity at the plate, both real tough catchers. Yeah, I think John Stearns and Realmuto are that's a great comparison.
Hey, Bob Masten, let me ask you, what kind of how far back do you go with John? Boyhood days? When did you first meet up with him?
Well, actually, the first time I met John, I played Little League football, and his father, Carl Stearns, was a renowned coach at East High School, and he coached Little League, and his oldest son, Billy, and I were the same age, and we played together, in Little League, and then we went on and played together in high school for TJ, and John was a couple years behind us. But John was such a great athlete. He ended up playing as a sophomore, on our high school team, and then he probably was one of the better players ever to come out of Thomas Jefferson High School.
His number was just retired, right?
Yes, that was his baseball number was retired, and he's in the High School Hall of Fame in the front hallway there.
What kind of a crowd do you expect for this celebration of life in November? I mean, a lot of people coming back to talk about John.
Well, I'm sure there'll be as many as there is alive. I mean, well, a lot of us are dropping off the face, but anyway, he's got a lot. There'll be a good crowd there because he still has a lot of great friends from high school and great friends from the football team and baseball team. So I'm sure it'll be a good turnout.
Bobby, you were teammates for a while, right? In the 70s.
Yeah, I watched him play. I didn't play very much on those teams. Those were Joe Torre's managerial days, and Joe leaned on John to to lead that pitching staff too. You got to remember that Joe Torre was just a player manager at the time. And I remember in one meetings, he just turned it over to John, where John stood up that pitching staff, and he told him about busting guys inside. He told him about knocking guys down. He told him about the breaking balls that guys were vulnerable to. And Joe leaned on him during that time.
Bobby, you weren't there for the Chief Nakahoma thing, were you?
Oh, yeah.
You were there. Why don't you tell
yeah.
Bob about Bob Masten?
One of the great tackles of all time. You know, Chief Nakahoma would come over and kind of do a war dance at home plate over at Fulton County Stadium, and then sprint to left field to his teepee. And John was down in the bullpen, and in full stride, the Chief, who was really fast and had a great stride, John came out of the blue and he tackled him as though he was going to stop him at the goal line. And the crowd went wild. It was one of the most amazing plays I've ever seen.
Bob, I don't know if you know, Bobby V and John have a lot in common. Bobby played football at USC. He could have maybe gone to the pros.
No, just in high school. I could have played at USC.
But he's still probably the best high school player to come out of we scored 50 touchdowns.
Yes, I like that. John and I we had simpatico, and I tried to smooth all my stuff over to be the manager, and he kept his dude style right to the last day he was in uniform. He was the tough guy. If I needed someone's attention, he was the guy to get their attention. That's for sure.
Bobby, could you, without any confidence, what was your last talks like with him when he came back?
I'm really getting chills here, Jay, because he saw me. He came across the room. I embraced him. I told him how much I loved him, and then he thanked me for everything I did for him. Which, you don't get many people actually say, "Hey, thanks for what you did." But we hung on together. I called him. I gave him encouragement when he was in between jobs at times, and of course I hired him, and we had some fun together in New York too. But the talk of look around, John, all these guys really know you and really dig you, and it just put that little grin on his face, a little smile from dude was worth a lot.
Bob Matt, you told me you took John back to the campus recently to honor Cliff Branch.
Yeah, the first game of the season this year for the University of Colorado, they played TCU, and that's at the end of the first quarter. They had a short dedication for Cliff Branch for making it to the Hall of Fame, and they had Larry Brunson and John and I come out on the field because we were on the team, and they acknowledged us, but he, I mentioned it to him, and he said, I want to be there for that. And as much as he was hurting, I mean, he still toughed it out, and the poor guy, it was tough for him to get in and out of the car and stuff, but he was just that kind of a guy who's dedicated. If he made his mind up to do something, by God, it was going to get done.
But Bob, you tell me a quick story about one. I think which bowl it was, a Liberty Bowl and in the Astrodome, where he got a little trouble. He ran a punt out of the end zone and made it by a yard. He almost cost you guys a game, but turned out you won the game. Was that the Blue Bonnet? I forget.
That was the Blue Bonnet Bowl, 1971, and he actually covered Riley Odoms the whole game, and it was a long night for Riley. He didn't catch too many passes, and Robert Newhouse was a tailback, and I think John lit him up a few times. But we had there was actually a key point in the game where we were deep in our own territory. And John was standing about 2 yards into the end zone. It was fourth down, and he's supposed to punt the ball. He runs it out of the end zone. It barely makes it the first down, and he walks right by Coach Crowder, and Coach Crowder had his arms crossed, and he just gave him that stare. And he said, "Son, it's a good thing you made that first down." But John, I said, what do you think about it? He says, Bobby, he says, I looked up and they were all running the other direction for the return. I had to do it. He just was so savvy and had a gut feeling for the game and everything he was doing, that he just knew he could do it. So he did it. I mean, he's just, and when he was playing safety, he knew the plays that were coming at him, and he'd get a full head start and hit these guys, knock them upside down. It was unbelievable.
Bobby Valentine, John made the All-Star team 4 times, and really a lot of bad teams. Is it? I mean, say something for him that his abilities as a catcher and 4 All-Star selections, a pretty good career, don't you think?
Spectacular career. He's in the highest echelon of people who've ever played the game of baseball. 4-time All-Star, a guy who led his team, and as you say, a lousy team. Led them behind the plate, led them in hitting often. He was a very, very good baseball player.
John was part of the 2001 team, 9/11, and is part of what you organized with the coaches and players. Talk a bit about what that team did to help, save New York, bring New York back to a bit of normalcy. That team.
Well, actually, under your leadership, Jay,
with everybody.
We went everywhere. Well, you let us know where we needed to be to help the wounds start to heal, and John couldn't do enough. Every time I went somewhere, he was calling, you need me to come. I want to come. He was on the top of the fire stations. He was in the fire stations. He was walking through the rubble of those buildings just days after, as it was still smoldering and smelling. And, the families that we touched as a Met family over that year with Tuesday's Children and beyond, John Stearns was definitely part of it. He cared about other people and he wanted to help. And, some people say that he was a very bad dude, but he was a very good person.
John's last days at the Mets were as a player, 84. What would you tell like a 10-year-old Met fan to remember about John? Both you guys, what would you want most remember about John as a player and as a person?
I would just say that for a young guy, there's not a better leader around than John. I mean, he cared about what he did, and he was very good at it. And whatever he could pass along, he would pass along. And he just loved what he did, and that's why he was so great at it.
Exactly, Jay. Those words of commitment, integrity and teamwork, those things that you want every young person to have. John had them with every step of his strut, every day of his life.
For me, guys, my first year with the Mets was 80, and I was a young kid coming out of a college campus, and John made me feel at home, taught me how to react in the major league locker room, and he did all the interviews for me. Just a good guy, and I appreciate taking the time. We want to just remember John's life and what he did, and hopefully we won't forget him. Hopefully the people will listen to this and remember what kind of guy John Stearns was. And Bob Masten, Bobby Valentine, I appreciate your time, guys.
Hey, thanks. Jay. It's an honor to be on your show.